Apple just unveiled way more than we expected at their event.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the All Future Podcast. Coming in with breaking news right after
Just
the
now.
Apple event. Breaking news for all 10,000 subscribers. We broke
Yeah.
10,000. What a great
Thank you.
week. iPhone, 10,000 subs. Things are looking great. Man, I got to say, just coming off the event, and I know I have that like recency bias or something, after I
Yeah.
see it, but I'm like, this is cool. This is cool. Like, I think there's enough stuff in there that I really liked. It got
Yeah.
me excited about the phones. I'd say the only thing I'm not excited about is AirPods Max, I guess. Everything else seemed pretty cool.
Yeah, they did update the AirPods Max, which I didn't quite expect. I expected it would come later or in a press release or something, but they tacked it on there and changed, added new colors.
Yeah.
I don't know if it changed them or just added colors, and then they changed to USB-C. That was it.
And that's the biggest news of the day, guys. Thanks
Yeah.
for watching. We'll see you next time. But I guess you want to just run it down and talk about it? Sure.
Yeah, this event was quite long, it felt, especially compared to recent ones. I guess it was probably over an hour and a half or so, and it's because there were a lot of detailed features that they had to get in, and also Apple Intelligence kind of reminding us of the Apple Intelligence features for everyone that didn't watch that last event and is now watching this iPhone event because it's the new iPhone. They're telling us and showing us everything it's going to have, a lot of future language. But first was the Apple Watch, and they officially announced the Series 10, which they did a lot of their bold claims as being, the biggest ever, the thinnest ever, I guess biggest display ever, probably the longest lasting, fastest charging, all of this stuff. But essentially it's just like a little bit bigger display.
Yeah, when at the top of it, they're like, and here's the new Apple Watch Series 10 in a stunning new design. And I'm like, oh, did they put one over on us? And I'm like, oh no, this is the same thing, man. Like, I don't think you can call it a stunning new design when you make the screen bigger, It's not like if when I upgrade from a 55 to a 65-inch TV, I go, a stunning new design in my TV. It's like, oh, well, this is the same thing, essentially. But it seemed like a solid upgrade in terms of some of the features and stuff that are in it. Obviously, like you just mentioned, it's that spec upgrade kind of thing that you would expect. I don't think this is going to get people who are not excited to upgrade their watch to upgrade. But if you're on that, like, oh, it's time for me to upgrade, you're like, oh, there's some new things in here for me to get on board with it.
Yeah, I think I'm about there. So I'm potentially considering this and either considering going for like the black Ultra because it's
it's the new color, right?
Yeah,
you gotta go
new
for
color.
that.
You got to go for that. Or going for this jet black because that could be what is the stunning new design is that the aluminum, they have a jet black polished aluminum.
Shiny aluminum.
So it looks way better than just the normal aluminum Apple Watch. So that could be what's stunning about it is that you can get the cheaper aluminum one. It looks like it's the stainless steel one.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? The stainless steel one is kind of the titanium now is going to be the new stainless steel, right? Like that kind of tier of the watch or whatever.
Yeah, so they're doing jet black, polished aluminum, rose gold, and silver aluminum for the Apple Watch Series 10. And then the polished titanium is what is replacing stainless steel. 20% lighter than Series 9 stainless steel. So that's a pretty big
I'm
update.
like, dude, make it 20% heavier.
Yeah.
I hate light watches. Like almost the only reason I like wearing a stainless steel Apple Watch is because it's just heavier. It just feels like a cooler watch,
Yeah, interesting.
So I'm like, 20% lighter. Get out of here.
Yeah, they're
like,
balancing
it's
design.
It's already light.
Watch people design versus like athlete people
Yeah,
design.
exactly. Yeah. I'm sure that there's so few people now that actually have like worn watches in their life, like it's getting smaller and smaller, or that wear watches every day, so they're like,
Yeah. The colors for titanium though are natural gold and then dark slate gray, and there's all sorts of stuff about it and the specs of how it's a little bit thinner and all that stuff, but it's 9.7 millimeters, which is 10% thinner than the Series 9. So I guess that's not nothing. 10% is a decent amount. They could have gone with 5%, but are we going to notice it? Probably not. If you have a Series 9, you get the new one, you're probably not going to be like, wow, look at that difference on my wrist.
I wonder if that bigger screen size is going to stand out, though, for people. I think probably so. Like, that's what I'm saying, especially if you're really used to your watch, and especially if you're a few generations back.
Yeah.
Like me and you, we have the smaller screen size, even of what's available now, even of what the newer ones have. So that's probably a pretty big leap for us. We probably noticed that right away.
And one of the biggest features they talked about, because the watch is always a focus on health, so they talked about sleep apnea, basically, I think, detection and tracking, and it's not like something that helps you fix it necessarily, but it gives you the information that you are dealing with this so that you can give a bunch of info to your doctor, essentially. And they talked about this for a while. It's one of those things where Apple did a huge study on this. It looks very impressive. Could help a lot of people with undiagnosed sleep apnea. And they're getting clearance soon. And it's available on Series 9, Ultra 2, and Series 10.
You're not getting too in the weeds and all the specs and stuff like that. But you know what stood out for me in the first 30, 40 minutes of the event? Health. That was like seemed really the headline of it. Apple's been doing that more and more over the last few years, focusing on the health things.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it better than talking about some gimmick feature or something like that. I think these are things that really do make a difference in people's lives. 100%. My mom sets off her fall detection thing all the damn time. She's a 70-year-old woman, but she's very active on the farm there. So she's always falling off of tractors or doing something. And she'll be like, "Oh, thanks, watch, but I'm okay." You know, she always talks to the watch for some reason. But but it always goes on. It works, you know. And she always tells me, she's like, "Oh, the watch thought I was in trouble again, but I wasn't." You know, I personally know someone who caught AFib because of the watch. Right? Like there's so many of these stories. They serve almost every Apple event now with like, this watch literally saved a life. So I love leaning into that. I love showing the bright side and positive side that this tech can do, especially as kind of like the opening, setting the tone for these things. Yeah. You know, and it puts you in a different mindset by the time you get to the iPhone portion of it, where you're like, oh yeah, these things are life-changing and not just a gimmicky thing to let me watch TikTok videos, even though that's what people do with them 90% of the time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The watch stuff is I always like seeing it because it's so health focused, like you're saying. And on the Apple Watch Ultra side of things, they added this new black finish, which satin black is what it's called. And they did updated bands to match that. You can now pre-order that along with the other one today, and it's available September 20th. That new color is basically just going to be, I could see some people upgrading for sure from an Apple Watch Ultra 2 to that one so that they have the latest color,
100%.
The Apple thing, even though it's the same exact watch. But then it's just, another option for that.
If you go with Ultra, you're going with the black one, right?
I guess I'd have to, right?
Yeah, it's crazy not to.
Yeah.
Crazy not to. It seemed neat, like the new Ultra stuff. There's a few other random features in there that I thought kind of piqued my interest a little. All the water dive stuff, big swimmer, big diver, right? So like I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. Like the depth meter and water temperature sensor, I think is cool. Like so that a solid, great upgrade. I don't like as expected. Nothing that really blew people away, I think. But they're gonna keep moving the same amount of watches they normally move.
Absolutely. And then next up was AirPods, and basically they just talked about the AirPods 4, which are the ones that are open ear. They don't have like the tips, and they've upgraded these to make them much better sounding, more comfortable than ever. And then they now have two different versions of them. One is the normal version, I think for $129, and then there's active noise cancellation for $179. And in my opinion, buy the noise canceling one. Don't even bother saving $50.
Who is the crazy person not buying the noise canceling version of this? Right? Like that $50. This is what's crazy, man. These prices are fairly stable and have been for a while, right? So you're looking at 10 years ago, like you'd be like, oh, it's a $50 jump to this, and now you're like, oh, well, that's 3 Happy Meals worth. Like that's literally like you think about how much some things cost now, especially like fast food, groceries, and stuff like that. It's like, oh, like this is an insignificant amount of money in the long term over the life of this product, and is going to give me such more enjoyable experience with it. That seems to be worth $50 right away to me. I think that, man, this is really gonna hurt Pro sales. Like at this point you're getting the Pros for the rubber ear tips, which I do like, but
I would imagine that improves noise cancellation a little,
probably pretty significantly. But like having a sealed thing on it probably a lot better.
But I'm curious to try and compare,
like see how it works.
Yeah, so those are coming September 20th as well. All of these products are coming September 20th. But mainly that was the big thing. They talked about some new features coming to AirPods Pro 2, but nothing like no hardware feature upgrade there. AirPods Max we mentioned earlier, staying at the same price, but they're adding USB-C and some new colors. And then again, like health focus, they talked about AirPods Pro, and they're actually going to become clinical grade hearing aids.
That's cool. I can't wait for it to tell me how shot my hearing is. Between the military and music and film sets. Like I've got no hearing, man. So.
It's going to have a hearing test that you can do on your phone with your AirPods Pro, which is pretty cool.
That is cool. I'll see if I'm just as nervous as when I do the hearing test for real, and I'm listening super good, and you like tell you to raise your hand, and they're like, "Sir, we haven't even started the test yet."
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Totally. So 40 minutes into the event, they got to the iPhone portion of the event, which definitely showed how much these other products are equally important to Apple. But they went all in on Apple Intelligence. I think at least 4 to 5 different times Tim Cook went, this design is designed from the ground up for Apple Intelligence. The iPhone 16 from the ground up, 16 Pro from the ground up for Apple Intelligence. They were very specifically focusing on Apple Intelligence. But what are your thoughts on the new iPhone 16?
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm psyched about these upgrades. And I know some people are going to be like, oh, more of the same, minor iterative stuff from Apple, blah, blah, blah. What are you guys talking about, man? This is a miracle. Like we have supercomputers in our pockets with all these new Apple Intelligence features coming, and I'm sure we probably have a whole video talking about what the timeline is on this stuff and how it has. But at least some form of Apple Intelligence will be available next month, I guess, and then we'll see what all rolls out and when. But I think the focus on the Apple Intelligence stuff, very cool. Having the camera button, very cool. I'm glad they put that on the baseline model. I was worried that was just going to be a pro feature, but having it on the baseline model does a few things. One, I love the demo of it as basically being the multimodal AI button, right? And that's ground up. Yeah, right, Tim Cook. I know that button has probably been playing for years before they even thought about Apple Intelligence. But it turns out that having that camera control button also makes a great multimodal AI activation button. And in their little demos they use, whatever, taking pictures of a restaurant and gives you the menu, all that kind of stuff. Awesome. Awesome. I like that. I like it being the shortcut. I like then how they showed both going out to Google and going out to ChatGPT, depending on what you're looking at and what the situation is. I was a little unclear of how that prompting is going to work. And am I going to need to know to tell it, hey, I took a picture of this bike, I'm trying to buy it, and then it brings it up on Google, right?
Yeah.
Or does it go, hey, I think you're looking at a math problem, and smartly suggest, hey, do you want to send this to ChatGPT? It could be helpful, right? I guess we'll see how all that kind of plays out and how it interacts with it. But I thought it was very cool.
Yeah.
I'm all on board with that. And then probably the other, going along with that, the other headline of this, all these new camera features, which I also thought were cool.
Yeah, absolutely. The camera control button is great. So it's like you press it. I think you can tap it for other controls like focus. You can swipe for zooming. You can tap to get through other controls and swipe through a little menu at the top.
There was all kinds, and I'm curious how this is going to work in actuality, like having like that many sensitive control features on a single button. That's probably going to take some muscle memory to get used to it, and like not press too hard, and how to do a soft double tap versus a hard double, like all these kind of things. And then that was also not really clear to me, and maybe I'll have to go back and watch it, but how did it activate, from a lock screen, did it activate that multimodal kind of thing to show stuff? And if it did that, how is that different from just launching the regular camera
I think it was
app?
Press versus press and hold.
Is that what it was? That's what I assumed it was some kind of like thing like that. But that's my point is that it's going to take some practice and some kind of building up the kind of instinctual nature of it to like know what to do. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to accidentally launch Apple Intelligence when they mean to launch the camera and vice versa, except while they're getting used to it. Yeah,
I'm excited though just to have that button, because a physical button for that is great. You already have your camera on your lock screen, but sometimes it's like the phone doesn't quite wake up from like the always on immediately, and then you press and hold and don't nail it. Here you can like be pulling it out and click the button and bam.
I love physical buttons like that. Yeah, very cool.
Absolutely. So they skipped the iPhone or the A17 chip entirely for the base models, and they're going straight to A18.
Which makes sense. Like,
better chip efficiency, all that stuff for Apple Intelligence. And then, they kind of just reviewed all the Apple Intelligence features.
What was interesting is it was a review of Apple Intelligence stuff, and then they kind of split it over the baseline and the Pro models, even though clearly some of the things they were talking about for the Pro models are just Apple Intelligence features that are also going to be just on every Apple Intelligence enabled device. So I thought that was kind of an interesting way to do it and kind of pad it out. But yeah, it's still, I actually found myself, and I mentioned to you while we were watching the event, I was all like, oh, well, what is the Pro going to have that's going to drive me for that upgrade? When you look at some of those features that are on the baseline. One, because of the kind of camera cropping stuff they're doing with the sensor, you're essentially getting multiple focal lengths. And for kind of a layperson, they might not be understanding what it's doing right here, right? Because you've always been able to just, I don't know, zoom in on your picture when you're editing and make it twice as big, right? That's a thing you can do, right? But you're not actually, what you're doing with that is stretching the pixels. You're drilling down the resolution doing that, right? So that's not actually a cleaner, more zoomed in image. And what this is doing is putting a window around the sensor so that you are taking less of a megapixels photo, but it's still native to those pixels.
Yeah.
So that means where that light came in, hit that spot on that sensor, and that's where it recorded that data, and it's not being digitally manipulated on the back end to make it bigger or smaller, which is what you would normally do if you're enlarging a photo or whatever.
Yeah.
I love that. And and we have been talking a lot. I've been kind of like 48 megapixels. Who needs that? That's crazy. What I loved about in this presentation, they talked about how merging from the different sensors to get a better 24 megapixel image, doing better light sources and everything like that. Because I'm always beating that drum that better pixels are better and better resolution, right? It's better to have smaller pixel or less pixels that gather more data than having a dense pixel thing. And Apple's like, oh, here's best of both worlds. We're going to rename the thing a Fusion camera. Good marketing. I'm down with that name. And we're basically doubling kind of the available native focal lengths of your system.
Yeah. And so with that comes a better ultra wide camera as well. It's 12 megapixels, but it has what they said is 2.6 times more light capture. So it's much better in low light, which is definitely noticeable on current iPhones. You use that if you're using the normal camera and you're like, oh, let me go wide, and you're in low light, it's like, whoa.
That's a daylight camera only.
That
right
is
now,
rough.
Really,
yeah. So that's definitely a good thing to see. And then that brings macro photography as well, which then they say adds up to the equivalent of like 4 lenses, because you have your macro, you have your 0.5, 1x, and then a 2x, which is really, really great for a base iPhone, that you have that full length, all of those different images, including a 2x that is at full quality.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It makes it a really attractive idea to save $200 and get the baseline iPhone.
Oh, yeah, and then the last thing is with the cameras in line, it enables spatial photography and video.
How could we forget, man?
Yeah.
You're the local Apple Vision expert here. We probably should have mentioned that. Yeah. So, yeah, cool. I look forward to using Apple glasses in 5 years and actually being able to look at my true depth captured stuff.
It might be one of those things where we're taking videos and photos and we're like, do I even need these? And then in 10 years we'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I was taking spatial video this whole time.
We're future proofing ourselves to be the sad widower in the cyberpunk universe watching the hologram of his dead wife, right? Like, so you gotta shoot that stuff ahead of time. So that's why we're having it.
Yeah, absolutely. So they did give us some actual timelines for Apple Intelligence, which is that it will be available as a free software update. It will be in beta next month. So that is October, beta form, which is kind of what we were expecting at this point. But then it's also starting with US English, localized English in December for other regions, and then more languages next year. So this is definitely a slow rollout for people like us. We're going to be getting every version right when it comes out because we are in the US English market. But definitely a beta when it's coming, and a lot of these features are rolling out slowly. Like I think those visual features they were showing, that's probably going to be next year sometime.
Yeah, I guess we'll see how it plays out. It's possible that Apple doesn't even know, right? Like, because they were kind of vague with it. They didn't really specify. Here's 4 things on this date. Here's these things. It was kind of like some of these things now, some of these in the future. And then when they talked about the rollout plan, they talked about the languages. They didn't talk about features, right?
Yeah.
Which was an immediate red flag to me that like, oh, they don't even know what they're going to have ready yet. Like, they're like, at some point, we'll get this thing to work with British English. It's like, so I thought that was the most telling thing I think about the timeline on the Apple Intelligence is that it was the vaguest timeline you could possibly have.
Yeah, absolutely. And usually they do that with some sort of feature, like maybe this has special ProRes HDR video coming this fall, but having it be the thing that they're talking about it being built for the ground up for in the future update, that's pretty
That's
interesting.
I'm gonna call you out on this one too, Tim Cook. Built from the ground up on features that won't be available until well, come on, man, it wasn't ready for this.
Yeah. But anyways, I think this is a great upgrade, especially with all the camera stuff. So it's keeping same pricing, $799 for the iPhone 16. iPhone 16 Plus is $899. And then up from there is the Pro, which is kind of lived up to all the rumor plus a little bit. So they are doing larger displays, 6.3 inches and 6.9, making it the largest iPhone display ever. Has all those things like the ProMotion display and titanium. They have 4 different colors, a darker black, and the newest one is a desert titanium, which we had talked about in previous videos.
That's what I'm getting.
That's you're getting that. So after all of this stuff, it has a bigger battery life. It has the A18 Pro chip, so it's a little better there. I guess the wide camera, ultra wide, is 48 megapixels, so not 12. Little improvement there, which hopefully delivers on this important things that you were talking about. Beyond that, what is it that convinced you to get Pro then?
That I'm like everyone, I have constant FOMO about things, and I don't want to all of a sudden need to shoot 4K at 120 frames per second, and I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Times in my life I've needed to do that, maybe once, but
I mean, I honestly shoot a lot that way on cameras for like B-roll of cars.
Oh, yeah, you shoot, yeah.
But I'm gonna do it with a camera. So I don't really need my phone to do it, but
dude, you say that you might switch it. This thing might actually be a killer kind of B-roll.
That's true,
thing, right? Because it's got the stabilization. It's easy to just pull out your pocket and record with it. And if you're doing like 4K at 120 with stabilization, that's probably gonna be pretty good looking footage.
All right, it's replacing. Never mind. You're probably right. And that already does happen sometimes where it's like, oh, let me get this shot of the interior or whatever. And I'm messing with so many settings and I just can't get it. I'm like, okay, well, here, let me pull out my phone. And I'm like, oh, like it looks a little like a phone, but it's getting the shot that I need super easily.
I mean, if you really set it up and shooting whatever Apple log or whatever, all this kind of stuff, like it'd probably look pretty great.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, just wanted to have all those other features. And the other thing that convinced me, we'll probably jump ahead in the notes a little here, $9.99. There was the rumor that it was going to be $11.99, right? I believe is what the rumor was going to be. And then they kept it at $9.99. So now I'm like, going back to my how many Happy Meals does this cost? It's like, oh, it's 3 trips to McDonald's more to just get this. I might as well get the nicer thing then.
Yeah, it's true. Only $100 from Plus, I guess. So $200 from the normal.
It's $200 from the normal. Like so, it's $200 over the course of a year worth it, or maybe 2 years if I keep it longer, right? And then it also adds to the resale value immensely. When you do the trade-ins, like the Pro models, like the rate that they trade in for is always a lot higher than the baseline models.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna go with Pro, I think.
Yeah. Me too. And I like that they added the 5X camera on both. So it's not just the Pro Max that has the 5X lens. Both of them have that lens, and they have that same fusion camera, so all the features we saw in the other one that it talked about. And tetraprism on both phones, those lenses, yes. Terms, things that we don't quite actually understand. But then they talked all about these video features, including that cinematic mode, and then a bunch of audio features, which was pretty interesting. So it's using 4 studio quality mics, quote unquote, in the phone to enable all this stuff that is hardware mixed with software and machine learning. But it allows you to like take video, and then you can separate different mic tracks depending on the scenario. And they talk about it being like kind of spatial video or spatial audio editing that you can do on device.
Capturing like 5.1 sound kind of, and like, or I guess it's 4.0 sound really, right?
Yeah, it's
like
emulating whatever. Yeah.
This is one of those things that like, oh, that's cool, and like a certain type of person's gonna think that me and you right now, but in like another couple generations they're gonna use that technology to improve something dramatically, right? And they've mentioned it several times, all this like neural engine machine learning to remove background audio noise and stuff like that. Apple's already really good at that. Like you can get pretty clean audio, and then if you use Apple editing software, like the voice isolation in Final Cut is a thing that I really wish I had when I was actually making a lot of film and commercials and stuff. I was like, man, this would have saved me so many times. Like I wish I had that. So yeah, like cool features, I think. And yeah, I'm excited about these phones. I'm more excited than I thought I'd be.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's seeing that camera button in action.
Mm-hmm.
I think, oh, that's pretty cool. The upgrades to the cameras, I think, are not insignificant. They're maybe not major, but they're pretty substantial. And I think having that kind of multimodal integration thing, that really stood out to me. I'm already like taking pictures and sending them to GPT all the time to like ask about stuff. And I was like, oh, putting that in there sounds really great. I love that. And I know, and we've talked about this a lot, this phone is a bridge phone, right? Like this is like, everyone says the 17 is going to be a bigger redesign.
Yeah.
Probably something actually designed from the ground up with Apple Intelligence in mind. But I'm like, at this point, like I'm just ready to, I don't want to miss the train here. I'm ready to get on it, right? And we talked about, I'm on a 14 Pro now, so I don't have a 15. So basically, I'm not going to have an Apple Intelligence option at all. So and you're the same way. You're in the same boat, right? So if you are like us and are into this stuff and on the 14, these are compelling upgrades, I think.
Yeah, especially if you take a lot of photos and actually care about what you're capturing, I guess. That capture button is pretty nice. For people who just literally point and shoot and don't care, I mean, it's probably not going to matter. But
even loading it with, like you saw, like it would activate into third-party apps too, which I thought was really cool. Like, so unlocking like a hardware feature into third-party apps, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
right?
that's great to see.
Yeah.
They gave a Snapchat demo, I think, but then also like pro video taking software.
Yeah, it did all kind of things. And if you look at the little slide, they like marked different like apps and like they had like a Shazam icon there and stuff. So presumably like you could just program it to do things or something. Yeah. So yeah, super cool. Super cool. I like that. I think I'm gonna use it. I think it is going to make my life a little better every day. I use the camera shortcut on my phone constantly.
Same.
And I like it, that physical button. It's going to be faster, more natural, work in more situations. You know, speaking of me diving and being underwater, I swim with my phone all the time. And the one thing the phone cannot do underwater is the touchscreen. So because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you have to, if you're going to take photos or videos underwater, you have to use the volume button thing now. So adding like that dedicated physical thing, I know this is an outside case and not a lot of people are like going swimming with their phones. But in any case, I think it's going to be something easier to access. And most importantly, I think actually, and kind of sums up all this, it's going to make me enjoy using the phone, right? Which is what it's all about. Like I'm not going to feel like I wasted my money. I'm going to feel like this is cool. Like I like this. This is pretty neat. And it gives me a little bit of, that, you know, when I go back to Louisiana on the farm and like, you know, I show the farm hands or my dad and I'm like, oh, check this thing out. They're like, that's cool. Like, I like that. I got to get me one of those, you know, like that. So, so I'm in on this thing. I like it. I think it was a great event.
Yeah, me too. So the Pro, as you alluded to earlier, or actually said, it's $999 and then $1199 for the Pro Max. And pre-order Friday, available September 20th. My prediction going forward is that probably somewhere like August of 2025 is when we'll see those multimodal features. And then September, the iPhone 17
We'll have to
comes
start
out.
a countdown, like days without cool multimodal thing that Matt was excited about.
Can't wait, but I'm definitely going to be pre-ordering this on Friday.
Me too.